Hello, Kevin Furman here with the E3LC Book of the Month. We are in the month with The Day of the Edge by David Horsager. And this is in the series of E3. E3 is effective with people, efficient with things, and encouraging with myself. And we're kind of in the second part of efficient with things. So this book is about that. Dave gives just really fast tips. It's like a 1 or 2 page, mostly 2 page tips. You just here it is, bullet points, go. Right. So today I think I'm gonna walk through them again, like I did the first week, and just kind of give any thoughts that pop up, but mostly just kind of a review, just kind of a Cliff Notes version of what's in here. And I think there's a lot of wisdom. There's things that I have incorporated, some things I haven't incorporated, some things I used to try that I don't use anymore. And there were a couple that I thought, well, I should rethink that again. So there's always things like that in this whole process to really think it through. So if you have any comments, if you have any suggestions on further books that I should look at for future episodes of this, certainly give me comments and let me know what you think. And feel free to join me, all right, on these times. Look for, I usually put a ad out on Facebook. I'm going to start putting them in different places, LinkedIn and Facebook mostly, and just let people know what's going on. Like if they want to kind of a jump start to their week and think, okay, I need to get my thinking straight for the week, and things got haywire on Monday, and I'm recording this in 2020, and that's the year of the pandemic, so things are just so different these days. A lot of people are still just adjusting. They're still trying to figure out like what is normal, right, and all that stuff. So anyway, I'm going to jump right into this and just offer these as just ideas, right? Some of which may apply to you in your situation, and some may not. That's okay, right? It's just good to have some ideas in mind. You may talk to someone who needs this tip, and you think, hey, I heard about that book, right? I heard about this book and had this idea with it. Give it a try. Whatever. Anyway, so we did 1 through 8 on the previous installment, and so this week's is going to be tips 9 through 16. So there are 31 total, one for every day of the month, I believe. And so we're going to start with tip number 9, which is excellence, not perfection. And his whole point is, just don't worry about it being perfect. What's more important is getting it done on time. Right. So generally speaking, and he's generalizing, but generally, instead of getting it perfect and having to be late or whatever, right? Perfect and late is not as good as great and on time. So his point is, just sit down and take the time to do it right. His first bullet point really is like do it right the first time. So even though in my mind that sort of is like backwards because perfection is about that, like I got to do it right, but he really means basically he's just saying just give it your full attention, right? Just whatever you're doing, do it full out, and don't worry too much about whether it's perfect, but just every effort you got and just get it done, right? That's kind of his main thing. So instead of doing it again and again, going back and fixing, just sit down and do it right the first time. That's what the point he's trying to get at is don't go back and rehash and oh wait, I could tweak it here. Just get it done. Like sit down and do it, right? And then the other thing he talks about is like give yourself a time limit. Begin to, and this is good actually when you got a lot to do, and I do this. This is something I do when I seriously get overwhelmed, and I spin a lot of plates and everything that I do. But when I get to a point where I really think my my philosophy of capacity is a state of mind, that's a freebie, um, is failing me. Right? I just like I can't get all this done. That happens at moments. It happens more rarely these days, but it used to happen more often. And I would say, all right, I got to work on this for half an hour. That's all I get. Half an hour, boom, full out half hour. And if I need a mental break, I'll take 5 minutes, get a drink of water, quick walk, whatever, and come back like, okay, another 45 minutes on this thing and just go. Right. I would do that. And that usually alleviated a lot of the overwhelm. So he's talking about that. He's kind of addressing that. Just give yourself a time limit, sit down, focus, fully go. And then this third point, it says know when to stop. And this is, he's trying to address the perfectionism part here. And this is a difficult one, right? If you are a quote perfectionist, which, that's a whole nother topic. I'm not going to get into that right now. It's not the point of the book. But perfectionism is a form of feeling inadequacy in what you do and who you are. And again, I'm not going to go deep into it, but that a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times, perfectionism is covering this feeling of I'm just not good enough to do it, so I'm just going to make sure it's perfect, so no one can insult me, no one can say anything disparagingly about what I did. It's perfect, right? There's nothing wrong with it. And that usually just means you just like you keep tweaking it, you keep going back, you're like, oh, I gotta fix this, and then again it goes back to the first point of like, no, just do it, get it done. So you got to know like when good at, like not good enough, but when the work is like, yes, this will work great, we could improve it and tweak it as we go, but right now this fulfills the requirements and then some, great, let's go. Right, and that's really what he's getting to. So stop there, stop tweaking it, like when it's at that point, that's excellent. Let's go. Move on. And the other thing is get feedback, right? And you get to that point, like, hey, check this out. What do you think? What do you think? Right now, I'm doing a project. Actually, I just kind of took it on just because I'm actually putting together a spreadsheet for some people, and I'm trying to streamline their system. And it's one of those things where, like, I enjoy doing it because of the puzzle of it. It's like this: how do you make things automated with just one form? You input it, and then it just spits out all the information that you want it to, as opposed to having to go through and manipulate everything every time. It's just I want to just put in the things I need, and then it tells me what the result is from these different forms. So anyway, things like that, right? So I bring that up because I'm saying I'm in the middle of this thing, getting near more than 2/3 done, and so I said, hey, let me know what you think so far. Here's what I got. It's not formatted right, but I've got things working. What do you think so far? Is this going to be close to what you have in mind? So anyway, just get feedback, right? So, and then there's a quote at the end of that chapter by Mark LeBlanc. Done is better than perfect, and that's just the point he made at the beginning of the chapter. So it's great. All right, that's tip number 9. Tip number 10: plan tomorrow today, which comes up a lot of times. Ben Franklin's famous quote of those who fail to plan to fail. I don't know if you've heard that one. Many people have. It's very common. It's plastered in certain places all over the place. But he's addressing this, right? He's addressing this. Now he doesn't get into all that like why and how it's helpful enough. He just says, okay, he kind of assumes you're going to do it, right? You assume you're going to plan the tomorrow today, right? So you sit down, you plan tomorrow. And I tend to do this in the evening, right? I'll make a week plan, and then each evening I'll kind of review it, and then I'll look at the next day and say, okay, yeah, that still looks great, or I need to tweak this, or this needs to move over there, or something happened, whatever, right? Um, so Dave, what he gets into, he's talking about your to-do list. He kind of just points at like your to-do list because that's usually what people use for their plan for tomorrow, and he did something unique, which I really like, and I haven't utilized this enough yet because I'm trying to figure out a way to do it digitally. But he says, okay, first you write down your to dos, 1 through 5, 1 through 10, whatever you got, right? And then you prioritize them 1 through 10, right? So you say, all right, 10 being the most important, 1 being the least important. You just go through each one and say, okay, that's number 1, that's least important. That's 10, that's most important. Kind of work your way either direction, both directions, however it works, but you number them 1 through 10, right? And then he goes, okay, that's great, and that's where most people do it. And they're like, okay, I got a plan. He goes, okay, that's great, but there's a piece that's missing, and this comes up in other ways to do to dos and how to organize yourself. But he does it this way, which I think is unique and quick. That's what's I like about it, is it's an efficient way to do what he's talking about, and that is this. Sometimes when we do the priority list, we kind of forget there are certain things that are more urgent than others. Like they're not important, but they're very urgent, right? And there's other systems that talk about kind of a four coordinate idea of, okay, you've got things that are important but not urgent, right? And you've got other things that are important and urgent, right? They need attention right now and they're very important. You've got things that are unimportant or not as important, like not important and not urgent, right? You can put those things off. They're whatever. Go do them another day. And then you got unimportant things that are urgent. They need attention, but they're not as important as the main things. And the whole topic's about all of how that works and whatever. But he's addressing that in kind of a two-step process instead of a quadrant thing. He's doing it in the sense of like just do it two ways. Prioritize what's most important, but then what's most urgent, right? And you redo the list. You don't compare them right then. You just say, okay, here's the list, which one's most urgent, which one's next most urgent. You work down to the least urgent. Then what he says is good. Now add up the priority and the urgent numbers to get your total. And whatever has the highest, do first, and then you work your way down to the lowest in your to-do list for the day. And so it addresses the importance and the urgency, kind of balances those out so that you're working on things that are important and urgent the most first. And that's pretty smart. I like it. So there's all that. So that's great. Last thing he says is put it on paper. He's a big fan of paper. I have to agree that paper is good. It's physical, right? It's a physical thing. You don't have to remember it. It's just right there. You can, actually physically cross things off, which is very rewarding for a ton of people. I've kind of moved in the digital world, so for me, it's a similar experience. When it's digitally, I cross it off. I get the same sort of rush, as far as when I push the box to say done. It's very similar to me as like crossing it off. So it's a mental shift for me, and some people do it that way. Some people paper is perfect. Pick one, right, and try it for a while. Try the other for a bit. Whichever one works better for you, do it, right? But his big thing is really just do that. Okay, just tip 10. So it's great. Just plan tomorrow. But the whole idea of important and urgent, adding that together and getting a total for each one really addresses those issues pretty quickly. I thought it was pretty unique, and I like that a lot. I've even suggested that to a couple people in the last couple weeks. All right, tip number 10 or tip number 11, sorry, is energize. Right? And he's talking about when you're gonna do something, right? You're gonna take on this project, you're gonna fix this thing, or you're gonna finish this deal that you have to, whatever. Get excited, get energized about it. Because if you're lackadaisical, if you're not excited, you're not gonna put your full effort into it, and it's not gonna go as well as it could. So just get excited about getting it done, whatever it is. Like think about. And he talks about this first thing is think of the bigger picture. When it's complete, what is that going to look like? And I would add in a couple other things about it. And this is kind of from my coaching side. Is when you finish, let's just imagine. All right, you have this project. And think about a project you've got right now. You're trying to get it done. There's pieces that are missing, but just think, okay, that's great. Take a few moments, right, before you launch again. Just think, well, when it's done, what is that going to feel like to you? Really think about that, and not just, well, I'll be satisfied, which may be the answer, but there may be other things, like I'll be relieved. Oh man, I'll be super happy because that was a big thing off my plate, and now I've got room to do these other three projects I've been putting off. That's going to feel awesome. Okay, great, right? So just kind of delve into how it will feel, and then also just think about, well, what does that allow you to do now that it's complete? Kind of like I said, like, well, now I have time for these other things, or now I can breathe, right? It's been so just encompassing. I have no time for myself, right? Okay, great. You get that done. Now there's time for you, or whatever, right? So think it through those things, and that can really help you be excited about jumping in. Just like, okay, let's get this done, right? I certainly am looking at that. I'm looking on some big moves myself, including the coaching idea. And I tend to just look at to to dos, like, okay, I got to get this done, then I got to get that done, and then someday I'm gonna be great. Like, I need to start looking at, like, yeah, I got to look at when it's done, but it's got to look be more the other way. Like when it's done, that means this will have happened, and then that before that I will have done this, before I'll have done. So there's some process to it, and then realizing some milestones on the way. And when you get to the milestone, be super excited about it, right? Be very excited that you hit that milestone because you're on your way to the goal. It's not you have to wait until the end to be excited. You can be excited along the way. And right now, I'll be honest, I am talking completely to myself about that because I'm really, really working at that. And I notice that I really do. I tend to think of when it's done, I'll be happy, I'll be fulfilled, I'll be satisfied, I'll be whatever, right? At the end, not in the process. And I understand the process of like enjoying the journey. I've heard that, I've said that, I've thought it. but I don't know if I experienced that. So I'm working at that. This is the one for me that I'm really diving into right now. Anyway, so think of the bigger picture. Then he says, act it, right? Which is just, feel excited. Put, invent enthusiasm for it. Act that you're excited. If you're not, just make it up, right? And if you make it up long enough, you will be. And then his next one he says is move on. And if you really, honestly, you're like, okay, I'm gonna be excited. You try to act it out, and you're just like, yeah, I can't do this. Maybe look, and he says, look, it's possible. This isn't it for you. Do something else. Find something that is exciting, right? If you can't find it after really delving in for a long time, if you can't really be excited about it, delegate it, give it away, walk away, right? But I mean, don't just drop it because it may be important depending on the situation, right? If it's just you, drop it, move on to something else. But if it's involving a ton of people, then you got to communicate with everybody like, okay, we're moving this somewhere else. I am not the person for this. We need to find a person that their skill set really fits this and they're excited about it. Anyway, he doesn't get big in that, but he does talk about that. And it says, if you lost passion for your work, it may be time to make a tough decision. He just leaves it at that, right? I was very wordy. And then celebrate the little things. He's addressing the milestone thing that I just talked about. It's like be excited about it on the way. So he addresses it at the end. Sorry, I jumped the gun. All right, so there's tip 11, right? So just be excited, energize, etc. Tip 12, go ready is the title. And basically, he's just talking about when you have something that's going on, you're going to take on a big project, right? He's talking about a big project. Okay, he says do the seeds first. And we talked about that last week. Seeds is an acronym. So refer to last time about that. And then be true. And that's his thing, like be true. Okay. What he means is when you're working, work, right? Don't do personal stuff. Don't gossip about this and that. Don't talk about TV shows. Just work. Just work, right? Now you can be excited about the work. You can have fun. You can have humor in it. You can create new ways of interacting about that so that it's interesting, right? It's not just I am working my life, blah blah blah. No, you can have fun while you work. It's just stay focused on work. Do work, right? Don't waste time. You're being paid to work. You're not being paid to gossip, etc. And then it says be ready anywhere. So really, it's about having things with you at times. So if you do some traveling, right, bring things with you to work on. Read a book that you need to read, articles. There's, now in the digital age, have your laptop ready to work on the form that you need to work on, or emails, or whatever. Just be ready. Have a plan for when there's downtime. Here are the things I'm going to do. Right, and if you need to make a list on that, make a list. And also along those lines, remember your notebook. So just basically he says that it's a notebook. It's kind of like a journaling book, or just a way to, like, if you have ideas, write them down somewhere. That kind of notebook, right? Somewhere that you can record your thoughts. And again, I tend to be digital in the whole thing, but the whole idea applies. So there you go, right? So just be ready for what's coming ahead. Kind of be prepared. Have things with you so there's no wasting of time. And his big point in this tip is just don't waste time. You're being paid to work, so work. Be efficient by preparing and be ready for it, right? Don't just kind of happenstance it. All right, tip 13. Here we go. Efficient email. Now, this is I don't know if it's dated because a lot of people, I mean, email's still huge. Texting is bigger. Um, there's other ways to communicate. Social media even is taking some of the form, like direct messaging is a little bit more than email when he wrote this book. But anyway, so he just gets into the email thing because it's a deal. So email, um, okay, so you close your email. So just don't have it open all the time and alarms going off every time you get an email. It's very distracting. It's hard to focus when you get these little beeps and buzzers and bells, whatever, getting in the way of you just totally focusing on something. And there are plenty of people, I used to think this way too, so I understand it. Like, well, no, I can focus even if it's there. I just know it's an email. I'll deal with it later. Well, if that's true, then just close it, right? Just get rid of it. And then when you're ready, you open it back up. You don't need to know that you have emails. You probably will, right? You know you're going to get emails. Okay, fine. You don't have to know like the second it comes in. If you're going to answer emails later, then just close it. When it's time for emails, do it. and do it then. Don't worry about it. And then, okay, so his big thing is get to 10 or less emails in your inbox. I'm horrible at this. I gotta just tell you right now. Up until recently, like I've decided after reading this again, I went, he's kind of right. I would let things kind of go. So it's just it's like a weight on your conscious when you open it up. You're like, oh man, all this stuff I have to do. So it just kind of weighs you down. So look, you just got to get to 10 or less in your email all the time, and it takes some effort. So the first time through, it's going to take you're going to have to block out some time to just walk through a whole bunch of emails and start to do the next part. Which, well, not the next part, but he's got some sub things. So when you're dealing with your email inbox, there's four things he says you got to do each email. Like once it comes up, you do one of these four. No, or whatever. Delete it or archive it. So if you're like, I don't need this, out, right? So either archive it just in case, or just get rid of it. Okay, the next thing is if you're not going to do that, then deal with it. If you need to respond, respond. If you need to do some research on it, do the research, right? Deal with the thing at the hand. If you can't do that, then file it. File it in a folder, file it in another spot, right? So he says, learn to use your folders and subfolders to archive message you don't need right now, but want to keep for the future. So there's like smart inboxes. So if it has a certain thing, it can automatically go in there. Or you can just make a folder. Usually in most mail programs, you can make kind of what do you call it, a subfolder, right? And name it a certain category, right? This is the house project. Anything with the house project comes in, you just put it in there, and then when you're ready to do with that, you go to that folder. So that kind of thing, right? So you can do whatever. I know a few people, a couple of people that do a lot of subfolders. I'm not a big fan of having tons of them. That's me, right? Some people don't want a bunch of subfolders. Some people like it. They want it very delineated and they can go to exactly what they want. Nothing wrong with that. I think there's a lot of good things about that. I don't do it that way. But anyway, not important whether I do it or not. I'm just saying subfolders work, right? And you can be as detailed as you want, just as long as you're using it in a way that's forwarding your efficiency, right? So it's not just random, but it's very specific to categories, and you put them in the right category. The other thing is file it, right? So that's the file it part. Sorry, and then the last one is flag it for follow up or attach it in your calendar. So meaning, so if you can't deal with it right this second, just flag it, right? Just say, okay, I gotta deal with this tomorrow. Okay, fine. Then flag it for tomorrow if you can, or on your calendar, right? Write in, send email to, or respond to, or complete this email on the calendar, like as part of that day, right? So that's what he's doing. All right, and then the last big tip here is just use email for information sharing. Don't do it for a lot of emotional content or very personal things. And it's still very true, even with texting and direct messaging. Personal stuff should be personal, as in person, minimum on the phone talking, right? To actually speaking to someone. There's so many ways to misinterpret the written word. It doesn't carry inflection like the spoken word. Like even this, right? If we transcribe this and you read what I said through this whole thing, it wouldn't have the same kind of impact, or it just wouldn't be the same. And so just use email for information sharing, and all that. And he also talks about later, he's, be brief and get to the point, etc. And that has to do with another subject that's coming up real quick. But same thing with emails, right? Don't go on and on. People are not going to read a book. They want bullet points. They want to know the point and move on with their lives, right? So there's that. All right. So email. All right. Tip 4 is phone habits. This one, in our society, people are using the phone less and less, and I'm finding there's people that don't understand how to use the phone well. Um, so some of this is what he's saying is very important because people are doing it less, and maybe that's, maybe that's it right there, is because people are doing it less, they need to be good at it, and when you do it less, you're not practicing it as much. So his points are this: make a plan. So when you're going to call somebody, why are you calling them? What is the point to your phone call? Not just, oh, I need to talk to them. Why do you need to talk to them? About what specifically? Are you trying to convince them? Are you trying to give them information? Are you trying to get information from them? what is the point of the call? Make a plan in your head before you make that call. What's the point? Why? Why are you calling them, right? And then when you do talk to them, so it is that get to the point, right? You don't have to beat around the bush. You're doing business. People are busy. They want to like, okay, great. It doesn't mean don't be cordial. It doesn't mean just like, okay, I'm like, hey, how are things going for you? What's happening with you? Is there anything, of note that's happened that's been great for you? Whatever, right? Small talk on a positive note, I think is a good way to go. And then just get the point. Say, you know what, I don't have a lot of time. I know you're really busy. Here's why I'm calling. Blah, 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 and then do your thing, right? And then they can appreciate that really quickly. Screen. He talks about screening. So if that's mostly like if you're in the middle of a project and someone calls you can call them back, right? You don't have to interrupt everything you're doing right then. So either turn your phone off or on silent or something. If you do need uninterrupted time, that's a way to screen. That's one way to screen. The other one is just you're working on something, you notice like, no, I can't talk to them right now. I've got to focus on this. I will call them back as soon as I'm done. Now, handheld phones, smartphones these days, you can see who called you, right? And if they leave you a voicemail, obviously, but you can see recent calls. So you can go, okay, great. I know they called. I'll get back to it, look and see who it was, and I'll call them back. Great. So there's that. And then when you have to leave a voicemail, which a lot of people, again, less people are doing it, but keep it brief, right? Don't just blah, 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 blah. Keep it brief. Here's why I'm calling. Hey, it'd be great to get back to you. Let me know when's a good time to call. Whatever, right? Whatever protocols make sense in your industry or the way you speak, but just make it easy. My general approach is make it easy for them to understand what you want, what's going on as quickly as you can, and then make it easy for them to have options to get in touch with you or when it makes sense, right? So if you have a specific time that you can only take calls, tell them that, right? Or if it's, hey, I'll return my phone call. If I don't answer, leave me a message. I'll get it and then I'll get back to you, right? So give them the option to leave you a message as opposed to having to reach you in person if possible. If you got to do it in person, just say, hey, I'm available here, here, and here. Pick one of those. I'll talk to you then. That'd be awesome. Thanks. Bye. Right. So keep it brief, keep it moving on. And the last one is be present, right? So if you're on the phone, don't be checking your email. Don't be reading your phone messages while you're on your phone or whatever, right? So just be with them, listen, pay attention to what's going on, be present with them. Do not do other things. It's one, it's distracting for you. Two, it's kind of rude, right? They're going to pick up on you're not really paying attention as much as you should. And if it's business, that could cost you business. That's not good. So be present. That's his last thing. So just do all that. All right. Now the next tip. Sorry, the next tip 15. Maximize meetings. So what distracted me was a lot of people aren't necessarily in a lot of meetings physically right now, again because of the pandemic, but they're in a lot of Zoom meetings. And part of the reason that Zoom calls I think are so fatiguing is the wasting of time, right? Trying to get everything started and then not everybody's up to speed. So there's a lot of things that could go on ahead of the meeting that could make the meeting just go, right? Now, there's always technological issues, there's whatever. There's stuff that happens, but the especially on a Zoom call or teleconference or whatever free conference call, whatever you're on, right? A video conference call, you just want to make it efficient, and that's the thing. And it's just like pare it down. So he says hold fewer meetings. Don't do one really long meeting. Break it up. Do a meeting on two things, right? um, and when you do that, when you start them, he says start them off with the right foot. So explain what's the point to this meeting and what's the agenda. What are we trying to get accomplished? Start with it. Like, here's what we're trying to get done. Here's the couple of things we're going to work on. Other things we'll address in another meeting. So if you have questions about something else, hold off. Let's deal with these first. Get this done. Get this meeting. Make it streamlined and real effective, so people can think, wow, okay, that was efficient. That was a good use of my time. That was very helpful. Um, so on that note, he talks about set shorter agendas. So don't have 14 things on the agenda. Have a minimal amount, whatever that means, right? Sometimes you have to have a lot more than one, but set as short as possible, right? Just get to the meat of it, get those things in, and let the other stuff that can be around that, after it, before it, whatever, after it or before it, not during the meeting. So just keep them. And then the other things he says, and I think this is more of a physical thing, because sometimes, again, technology isn't necessarily our friend. So switching from one Zoom call to another, what I've heard is that can be exhausting for people too. They need time to just kind of get away from the screen, stop for a few minutes, and then jump back in, right? But physical meetings, he's talking about that in the book when he wrote this, is the reason I'm saying all that is he says schedule them back to back, right? So schedule a meeting 2 to 2:30, and then 2:30 to 3. So you just, like, you have to wrap things up because you're starting the next meeting. So you can't just kind of let it go over and, oh, well, okay, yeah, an extra 10, 15 minutes, whatever. That fatigues people when it's just kind of going on. If it has a time limit, it has a time limit, right? Start and stop on time. That's it. If you don't get stuff done, realize, and this isn't in the book, but for me, I've always thought of it this way: if I don't get accomplished in the time frame I set, that was poor planning on my part, not poor execution on the participant's part, right? I didn't plan for enough time to discuss, or I didn't set it up efficiently enough. I didn't have a clear enough agenda. I didn't have a clear enough point. I didn't explain myself succinctly enough, whatever, right? So sort of my fault for not planning it well. So if things don't go well, I still stop on time, and I think, okay, I didn't make it, so I've got to plan better for the next one so I can get it all in, or be more efficient to get it all in. Either one. I always go back to me. I don't look at others for when we don't get things accomplished. It's my deal. The last point in this one is go public. Um, so if his point on that is, if you're going to meet with someone, say, outside your normal staff, go meet somewhere else out of the office, so that people aren't interrupting your meeting, right? So other staff people you have aren't coming into your meeting and interrupting because they need questions answered from you, and you're busy with this person. Go somewhere, go outside the office and meet with them in public, so it's just you and you can focus on them. There's good and bad about that point, if you ask me. But that's his point, right? So he's just saying, don't let your inner staff interrupt you in your meetings. That's what you want to avoid. So, so there you go. And then there's a quote here I like: "The one who claims it cannot be done should not interrupt the one who is doing it," which is true for a lot of things. We could apply that to many. All right, the last tip for today is tip number 16: the flight plan. And this is for people who travel. We're in a pandemic. Not many people are traveling right now. More people are traveling now, but for a while, for a few months here, it's had been very little travel. So, okay, this is for the future. So his thing is, write down your travel plans. Like, make it write actually write it out. That, again, that's up to you whether you do that physically or even just typing it, whatever. But just go through the itinerary. Make sure it's making sense to you and you've got it clear in your mind what's supposed to happen. Don't assume anything. Go through the points, check the times and dates. If you're doing time zones, make sure the time zone difference makes sense and it's super clear what's happening. Um, then the second one is come prepared to work. So it's similar to another one where you bring things with you. Bring your laptop, make sure it's charged up, ready to go. Um, have a book, have magazines that you need to catch up reading on for work, right? Just sit at your time, right? You got some downtime, you're kind of stuck, so to speak, you're not in your normal environment. Well, it's a great time to read, great time to catch up on those type of things. Um, Another thing is expect the unexpected, right? So things are going to change. Is sort of his main thing is you get to an airport, flight's delayed, or there's weather, or, right? So just be ready. Things will change. So don't get so stuck in that itinerary you wrote down that you can't get past the fact that it changed, right? So don't be stuck on the past about it. Okay, this is what it is now. Make a new plan, write it down again if you need to, or just adjust on the fly, right? So just be ready for that. The next one he says bring backup. So I was just about to say it earlier is like make sure things are charged up before you leave. Right, charge them up the night before before you leave. Make sure that your batteries are all ready to go. We live in a very heavy cell phone, laptop world where they need power. Bring extra cords, right? So make sure you have your power cords with you and accessible in your bag that you're going to carry on. extra ones just in case they go down. You're going to need stuff. Maybe an extra battery, a battery charging device for your phone, especially, so you're not stuck with low battery halfway through your flight or something, or whatever, like through your trip. Um, and then he talks about anticipate your energy level, right? So there's going to be times if it's a longer trip, right? So you have kind of your daily energy cycle. You also, when you're away from home, that can have a cycle also. The further you are away from your normal routine, the more fatigue can show up, more quickly it will show up. And so you have to like realize that that's going to be part of the cycle also. So there's kind of a macro cycle as opposed to the daily cycle of your energy level. So just being aware of that, like anticipate, like, yeah, I'm probably going to. Or if you're something that doesn't affect as much, fine, but at least be aware that it could, and realize that it's not just happenstance that you just are, like, oh man, this is taking a lot longer than it should. Oh yeah, that's right. Okay, I need to sleep a little bit more. I need to do something more. So anyway, there's that. And then he says it's not really an extra point, but he does ask this question, like, how important is this trip really? Do I really have to take this trip? And that's something to think about ahead of time. But as you're doing it, like, remember, how important is this? If it's very important, it's very important, right? If it's not, it's not. And then plan better the next time for making sure you just do important ones. Okay, so that's 9 through 16 in the book, The Daily Edge. We're gonna do 17 through 24 next time, and uh, and check it out then. So again, if you have questions or comments, let me know. You can either do them here or email kfurman@e3lc.net. Feel free to let me know what you think about the books, what ideas for new books, or whatever. If you are interested in talking about coaching or consulting, I do both. They are different, right? I do business consulting, which is a specific business plan for people, or a coach for business or for personal or career or transition or whatever, life, right? Life coach kind of thing. And then also I do health consulting too. So if you so that's another thing I'll tag in here too. So we've got some options. This was just tips on day-to-day things, but want to just, like, I'm coming at it from the standpoint I'm trying to provide service to as many people as possible, and those are the types of things that I do. So just putting that out and letting you know how that works. Give me an email if you got any questions or have comments, and we'll see you next time. Thanks for checking it out. Bye.